so let's go ahead and get started. We have a webinar full of information for you. So we're so excited for all of you to be here. We're really going to be talking about crafting compelling conference proposals from concept to acceptance. And for those that don't know me, my name is Lisa Terry. I am an early intervention professional development consultant with Virginia's Early Intervention Professional Development Center at VCU's Partnership for People with Disabilities. I am also on the Creating Connections to Shining Stars Conference Planning Committee, and I co-chair the Proposal Subcommittee. I've also had just experience submitting and being accepted on a lot of different proposals from state, national, international conferences. So hopefully I can give you a little bit of just my experiences too today. And I remember when I first started writing proposals, I was really intimidated by them. I just wasn't sure what information to write, if I was putting too much information. But I also served as a conference proposal reviewer before, and so that kind of helped me understand what it is that they are looking for. We also have a lot of people on our planning committee. Corey Hill, she's here with us. Corey, I'm just going to throw you out there and just make you introduce yourself, but she's actually the chair, one of the co-chairs of the committee. So Corey, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. As Lisa said, I'm Corey Hill. I oversee the Virginia Early Intervention Professional Development Center. And for Creating Connections, I am the co-chair for conference planning, along with my colleague Margot Vaughn from Virginia Tech Training and Technical Assistance Center. We've been working together for a very long time. So I'll put a plug in. We hope y'all are going to join us in Roanoke in July. Thanks,
Corey.
Lisa.
Yes, we are super excited about this conference this year. And for those that don't know, Creating Connections to Shining Stars, it's really just this collaborative effort between Part C early intervention and Part B early childhood special education programs. And we host them biannually. So every other year is when we host. The last one that we had was in 2022. And this year it will be held in Roanoke, Virginia. So to get us started, I am going to actually throw a poll question up for you, if I can find my poll. And let me see. Okay. It makes me go through all these back ends. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and launch this. But what I want you to do is go ahead and type in or check the box if you've ever submitted a conference proposal for any conference ever. It doesn't have to be Creating Connections to Shining Stars, any kind of conference. Just let us know if you've ever submitted one. And then if you have submitted one, there's a second question, was it accepted? And then the third question is, have you ever attended the Creating Connections to Shining Stars conference? I will give you all a few minutes to go ahead and answer those questions. See them coming in now. Thank you. Okay, I am going to go ahead and end the poll and let's look at those results. So for those that have submitted, it looks like more than half of you have, about 56%, sorry, have already submitted a proposal before. So you have that experience. So we'll actually even rely on you to share some of that experience today. And then about 44% have not. So hopefully through today's webinar, this will kind of encourage you to maybe try to submit a proposal to Creating Connections to Shining Stars. And for those that have submitted, was it accepted? About 82% yes, so that's great. And then 18% no. So we'll talk about that. We'll give you some tips and strategies on how to really submit an exceptional proposal and look forward to getting it accepted. And then have you ever attended Creating Connections to Shining Stars conference? So about half have, 59%, a little bit more than half, and then 41% have not. So hopefully you will all join us to this year in 2024. And the date for the conference, it's July 16th through 18th. On July 16th, we always hold a pre-conference, and then July 17th and 18th, those are our general sessions. Okay, let's get into it. So this is kind of just what to expect for today. We will be really talking about tips for making a proposal a success. And I will actually go ahead and review all of the proposal requirements for creating connections to Shining Stars. So you'll kind of get a little insider peek. They will be launching today and opening up at 2 p.m. So be on the lookout for that email. I'll also share information on kind of how the review process works, just to give you a little bit more of an understanding of what that looks like. So as I'm going along, if you have any questions, write them down and there will be time at the end for questions and answers. So first I want to share this timeline with you and just give you an idea of what you can expect with the dates. So the call for proposals, like I said, is going to launch today at 2 p.m. And then after that, the submission deadline for that is February 9th, 2024. So if you have any interest in submitting a proposal, just, plan a date on your calendar to really plan it and write it all out. And then notifications will be given by March 1st, 2024. So hopefully right around that time frame, because registration is actually going to be open just for presenters. So you will have first dibs on registration for creating connections to Shining Stars, as well as the hotel block. And then presenter confirmation forms. So if you are accepted, your proposal is accepted, then you'll receive an email from me that will ask you to just confirm that yes, you are planning on attending. And so that way we can lock in our program. So those are going to be due on March 29th. And then presenter handouts, we use an app called Cvent. And so all presenters will just upload their own handouts there, and those will be due by June 21st. And then registration is also going to be open to the public on April 1st, 2024. So presenters have until from March 1st through April 1st to go ahead and register for the conference during that time. Okay, now let's really talk about what is like the nitty-gritty about writing conference proposals. So first, one thing that you really want to think about is, what is your topic going to be? You want to really find some kind of hot topic, right? You want to know what is something that's trending, what is something that is really unique right now in the field. Find your focus. What is something that you think that would be beneficial to the participants? You also want to make sure that it's evidence-based. Usually almost all conference proposals have to be aligned with evidence-based practices. So you want to make sure that you're pulling in some of that research and that information to back up what your content is. And then you want to be creative, be catchy. When you think about it and you think about what reviewers are looking at, these are the first things that they're going to see. They're going to look at your title, they're going to look at your abstract, right? And so you want to really captivate their attention, as well as, if your proposal is accepted, the audience's attention. So that's a really important piece of it. Next, you want to make sure that you proofread, right? You want to make sure that it's very well written. You want to use proper grammar, spelling, punctuation. You really want to make sure that it's free from errors and that it's very clear what you're trying to say in your description and your abstract. Always have somebody, if you have another colleague, just kind of look it over one time before you submit it. It's always nice. I always have Corey look at my stuff because she's a great editor. And so I love giving her things to look at just to have another point of view too. And then you want to make sure that you are concrete and concise. So be very specific, right? So when somebody reads your session description, you want to make sure that they have a pretty good idea of what they're going to get from your session. This is what the reviewers are looking at. They're looking at your description. And so you really want to make sure that you're giving them that clear idea of what your session's going to be about. You don't really want to use too many like buzzwords. You don't want to be too vague, really staying away from abbreviations, because you want to make sure that whoever is reading your proposal, that they understand what message you are trying to get across. And they might not know what your abbreviations mean. And then you want to make sure that you are always meeting proposal requirements. I will tell you, this is The number one thing too, when you're looking at a proposal, read through the requirements very carefully, right? And make sure that all of the information that you're submitting is covering all of that required information. Because usually what happens, those requirements are tied to a rubric, and that's what reviewers are going to use. And so you really want to maximize all the points that you can receive by making sure that all the information is there. And then the title. That is so important because that's the first thing that reviewers are going to read, as well as the audience, again, if it's accepted. So you want to make it something fun, make it something catchy, make it something interesting. Leave them with a question where they're wondering and they want to know more information. Because titles usually really provide participants a lot of like insight into what your session is going to be about. What is your main focus of your session? You want to think of that title as kind of like your one-line elevator speech to really engage that audience to come to your session. And then next is the abstract, right? And that's going to be included in the program. So you want to make sure that you are describing what content to expect during that session. And this is really something that's going to help entice the audience to attend your session. You want to make sure that you're captivating them, right? So I know we've all been to conferences before, right? And we always read the description. First, I look at the title, and then as soon as I see the title, I'm like, that looks interesting. I want to know more. So I'm going to go to the abstract and I'm going to read a little bit more about it. And that's how I determine whether or not I'm going to attend a session. So you really want to make sure that this is something that's captivating. You're letting your audience know what to expect if they attend your session. And then you want to look at that description. And again, you want to make sure that you're including all that information. You want to watch your character count or your word count. Every proposal has some type of character or word count, so make sure that you're being very mindful of that. And that's where it's going to really help to make sure that you're being concise. Okay, so I talked about hot topics, right? And so these on the right that you see, those are all of the hot topics that we're recommending for creating connections to shining stars. So social emotional, goal writing, transition, assessment, classroom management, child development, sensory impairments, understanding behavior, assistive technology, leadership, substance abuse, and class for those Part B folks. So take a look at those. If you have a topic in mind, though, that's not on this list, don't let that steer you away from submitting your proposal still, because it could still be something that is really interesting and relevant to the field. So continue to still consider submitting that. And when you're thinking about um, different tips, you want to make sure that you're going to share boldly. So what does that mean? It means that you don't just present, right? You're going to share some kind of innovation and knowledge from your own experience. Everyone brings their own experience to this field. And so we want to learn more about that. What is your perspective that you can share? What is it that you bring to the table that you want more people to know about? You can be future focused, right? So choosing some kind of hot topic, but also pushing the boundaries of current knowledge. Then you want to think about inspiring people, right? You want to empower participants to really explore and practice implementation, right? And learn a lot of new strategies. You can also engage participants. And really, our sessions for creating connections to shining stars are set for engagement. You have 90-minute sessions. And the reason for that is that you can go a little bit deeper and you have the time to engage those participants, but you want to model those best practices. So make sure that you are captivating your audience and you want to make sure that they're leaving energized, right? And then show, don't tell. You want to demonstrate creative applications of that implementation into practice. So that way you can invite those participants to join in. You also want to advocate for equity, right? So you want to share the importance of application and access to meet the need of all learners and be inclusive. So consider choosing co-presenters that are going to represent a diverse background, right? Different perspectives. Maybe they're a different discipline or different experiences that they bring. You want to be objective. So the biggest thing is you want to make sure that you're selling an idea. So it's not about selling a product or a brand. We'll get into that a little bit later, but we actually don't even look at proposals that are selling any kind of products or anything like that. And then you want to make sure that you are educating. So you want to share your ideas based on those evidence-based practices. So, ready to start? So where do you start, right? Let's plan it out. So I'm giving you very specific steps of what you could do. So first, you want to really think about what is your topic and then identify potential co-presenters that can present with you. Then you want to read over the submission guide. So make sure that you have a very good understanding of what the requirements for the conference proposal would be. And then you start beginning to plan and draft your proposal. And when you draft your proposal, I always say draft it in a Word document first, right? You do not want to be in the link where you are submitting your conference proposal and doing that on the fly. You really want to make sure that you are doing this in a different document and then copying and pasting it in later, because that's going to give you time to really proofread, to edit it, and make sure that it reaches the character count. And then you are ready to submit. So let's talk about the title, right? Because I keep saying that it needs to be something catchy. It needs to be something that is engaging, that's captivating the audience. So for creating connections to shining stars, you have a 225 character limit, and that includes the spaces, right? So again, you want to make sure that it's giving insight into what your session is going to be about, but you also can consider making it fun, making it catchy, making it something that sounds like a really great session, right? It's your one-line elevator pitch. So I'm going to give you guys time to practice. So on the screen, you see 4 different topics. So the effects of trauma, understanding temperament, co-teaching, what is functional assessment? Now, what I want you to do is I want you to take a few minutes and I want you to write a title for any of these, for all of these. What's something else that we could say? Because the effects of trauma is not something that we might not attend, right? Because it's not engaging to us. So how would you rewrite that? So go ahead and take a few minutes, and I want you, as you're writing them, just put it into the chat box. So I'll be quiet so you can do that. And then once you're done, so put those in the chat. I see your question, Melissa, what happens next? So once you're done with that, then I'm going to actually show you some examples. So take a few minutes, rewrite these titles, and put them in chat. Oh, okay. Thanks, Melissa. Oh, she clarified. That was her title for the effects of trauma. Thank you. All right, I see some coming in. Feel free to keep adding. I'll give you about 1 more minute, and then we'll kind of go over some of these ideas. Melissa Davis, she said, I'm blanking. This is hard. Yes, it is. And especially to do it on the spot is really difficult. I feel like sometimes I need to step away and then come back to it. And usually, like, I'll write things down, like what kind of words I want to use, and I'll expand off of that. Okay, so let's go over these. Before I do, I just want to let you know, don't feel like you have to write any of this information down because it is going to be, there's a submission guide that's added this year for the call for proposals. That'll be, and you'll also receive that in your survey. So don't feel like you have to write anything down because you'll receive all of this information. Okay, let's see. All right, so what's so functional about functional assessment? I love it, Brandy, right? So you're imposing a question, like you're giving them, it's a little bit more thought-provoking, right? Understanding temperament. Help my child from being expelled from childcare. Ooh, Adele. Now you're hitting like one of those big hot topics, right? That's a huge thing right now that people are interested in. So how does this apply? Love it. And it's very specific too. The bare necessities of co-teaching, models, strategies, and teamwork. Yes, I love it. And I love how you are bringing in, relating it to like a movie. That's great. Co-teaching, we're in this together. Yeah, so it's more empowering, right? You're making them feel inspired already just in your title. Have you ever wondered what's under an iceberg? Again, a thought-provoking question, right? Co-teaching, playing the sandbox together, the joys of co-teaching. I love it. So now you're focused on the positive too. You're talking about the joys. Let's get together, co-teaching. Yes. Childhood trauma and the effects of healthy development. Yes. So that's giving like a little understanding of what to expect and what trauma is, right? Co-teaching, strategies to build collaboration and success. Y'all are nailing these. Understanding temperament. What makes children react the way they do? Again, another thought-provoking question. Understanding temperament. I love this, Jay. What can you learn from Winnie the Pooh? And it's so nice too, because when you add a little bit of fun in your title, then I want to go to that because chances are that presenter is going to be engaging. So a little fun kind of says a lot about the presenters too. Co-teaching, collaborative classrooms through co-teaching. Love it. Co-teaching, let's learn how to work together. Meet me at the altar, co-teaching marriage. Love it because it is. It's like a partnership, right? Make a difference understanding the effects of trauma. Yes. So for understanding temperament, do you know the secret to not getting expelled from school? Yeah, these are so great. And I love it because I think, keep bringing these. If you're going to submit a proposal, bring this excitement to writing a title because again, it's so important, right? On who's going to choose to go to your session, but also for the reviewers, it's going to be something that catches their attention, right? They're going to remember that title. So let me show you the examples. And these are real examples. I pulled them from the 2022 Creating Connections to Shining Stars. So that way you can see real examples of these. So let's look at them. So the effects of trauma through a child's eyes, understanding the effects of trauma on children. And I don't know what it is, but through a child's eyes, it kind of already starts to play on your heartstrings a little bit, right? Blame it on the brain, the truth about temperament. So it's giving you a little bit more information, but it also makes you want to learn more. Co-teaching, days of our lives. So they kind of pull it in that analogy to a soap opera, right? Like many of you did with like Winnie the Pooh, for example. EI assessment. What's the deal about stacking little cubes? So I think you have a great understanding, and these were fantastic examples of a catchy and captivating title. So keep pushing your limits. Usually when Corey and I are thinking about titles or names for anything, we end up generating like a list of different titles options. And then sometimes we'll choose different words from that list, and then we put it all together and then it comes out great. So always play with it and have fun with it. Okay, the next thing, your abstract. So I'm going to give you real examples again from the same ones where you generated titles, but let's go over that. So for Creating Connections to Shining Stars, the abstract, there's a 375 character limit, including your spaces. So again, you really want to make sure that you are being mindful of what your character count is while you're writing it. So you want to make sure that also it's free from grammatical errors or anything like that, because remember, the abstract is what's going to be added into the program. And so you want to really make sure that you're also clear about what the expectations and the outcomes of that session are going to be. So let's take a look at this one. Now, this was the example from our keynote 2 years ago that actually did a breakout group or a breakout session, I'm sorry. And so this was the title, Through a Child's Eyes, Understanding the Effects on Trauma in Children. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll read this out loud to you. Unfortunately, if you're working with children and families today, you are likely encountering trauma and its effect. In this session, Jim helps you better understand how the experience of trauma can have a profound effect on the physiological, I can't even say that word, and psychology of children. Jim will explore different types of trauma and how they impact the developmental trajectory of children. He will also explore how how understanding these potential effects can help us provide more responsible and effective interventions. So you get a very clear picture, right, of what to expect, what you're going to learn about. But also note the character count. There's 505 characters, including the spaces in this abstract. So remember, we have a 375 character limit. So think about how to make something like this a little bit more concise, but also how are you going to engage the audience too? So we have some content, but how is the audience going to engage? What can they expect when they are attending your session? Usually, most participants really like coming to something that is like hands-on. There's breakout sessions, there's thoughts and questions going around. And so really kind of thinking about that. Yeah, Corey said he got a pass because he was a keynoter. Exactly. All right, let's take another look at another example for the rest of them. Okay, so blame it on the brain, the truth about temperament. What is the meaning of a child's behavior? So we start off with a question. Join us to explore how temperament traits influence a child's and adult's actions, behaviors, and interactions. Explore the link between temperament and behavior using a temperament tool and interactive scenarios. Participants will learn strategies to support the caregiver's understanding of temperament. So you get a good understanding of what the content will be about, right? But you also, it shows a little bit of how the audience is going to participate. So you can kind of know what to expect and what you'll learn, and it really highlights a resource already there. All right, EI assessment. What's the big deal about stacking little cubes? Ever wonder about assessment items like stacking 1-inch cubes or standing on 1 foot? How do discrete testing tasks translate into everyday routines activities? Join us to consider the relevance of these types of testing tasks in EI assessments and the importance of understanding underlying functional skills to support child progress. So you get a very clear picture of what the content is going to cover if you're attending the session. Now let's look at the last one, the co-teaching days of our lives. I can't help but think these are the days of our lives in my head when I'm reading this. Okay, this session
Now
will.
I'm doing like sands through the hourglass. These are the days of our lives.
Good. I'm glad I'm not the only one, Corey, getting this stuck in my head. So this session will include real life stories of how co-teaching can be a drama as well as a success. We'll also highlight some relationship tips that we found helpful for working together to make our classroom a happy home for all our students. And so I love this because they're also showing you how they're going to bring in real life experiences, right, into the session. And so as you can see, those character counts for the Blame It on the Brain, it was 358. The assessment was 349, and then the co-teaching was 245. So it is very doable to get an abstract under 375 and still get your message across. Any questions about abstracts before we continue? All right. So now let's look at the description section. So again, remember, I said, when you are thinking about this description section, you really want to look at what is the requirement of that section, and then also make sure that you really hit every single detail that they're asking for. So for creating connections to shining stars, there's a 700 character limit, including those spaces again for each section. Now, this is all of the information that conference reviewers are going to look at when they are determining whether or not to accept your proposal. There will be a rubric and that they're going to use. And so you want to make sure that everything is really well written, that you have all of the information that's needed in there, and that it makes sense, right? Because again, it's a point system based off of all of this information that you're putting in. So the first thing are the objectives. So you really want to make sure that those are very clearly stated and that it's going to support the proposal content. You want to make sure that you're relating them to participant outcomes and really state what are the outcomes for those participants? What are they going to learn by attending this? What are your objectives, and hoping that they will walk away from, and making those outcomes really measurable. And so you want to include any of those ideas, the goals, and how you're going to achieve them in that objective. So it's really giving a nice little summary of what to expect there, right? This is what they're going to learn. This is how they're going to learn it, and make sure that you're relating all of that content. Then you have your outcomes. So this is really targeting how your session is going to lead to productive outcomes for young children and their families, really across a spectrum of diversity. So why is this information important, right? Why is your content relevant? How does this help those that attend your session support young children and their families? So considering that. Then you want to look at relevance. And this is how you're really going to talk about how your content is immediately relevant and it's going to lead to those productive outcomes. And for young children, for their families, but also for professionals from a variety of backgrounds. And then the evidence base. This is where you are going to really show how your content aligns with evidence-based practices, but also you're going to show how it aligns with Division of Early Childhood's recommended practices. And I'm going to go into that on the next slide and give you a little bit more details. But when you're really considering that, you just want to make sure that you're showcasing that. Now, you do not have to include citations, but the reviewers should be able to understand what evidence you're pulling from based off of your writing. And so the reason you're not going to add citations is just because of the character count and making sure that you're staying within those limits. And then the presentation of materials. Again, we want all sessions at Shining Stars to be engaging for participants. And so really describe how your session is going to be organized, right? So what kind of adult learning methods are you going to incorporate to engage the audience, whether you're going to do breakout sessions, whether you're going to do case studies and scenarios, really thinking about that. If you're going to, really open it up for questions and you're going to engage them through chat throughout the time. If you're going to have them do something hands-on at their table, you want to make sure that you're describing that, because that'll give a good, clear picture of that you understand adult learning practices and that you understand how to keep that audience engaged. All right, let's look at the DEC recommended practices. So the Division for Early Childhood, for anyone that does not know, that is one of the largest international professional organizations, and they are really dedicated just to supporting families and their young children who are or at risk for any kind of developmental delays or disabilities. And the DEC recommended practices, those were written to really help bridge that gap between research and practice. And so that's why we try to align it with the DEC recommended practices, because that's really something that's also evidence-based. And it offers guidance to parents and professionals that have young children with developmental delays or disabilities. So when you're thinking about the DEC recommended practices, you have lots of options to choose from. So there are different subtopics or topics for each DEC recommended practice. So you have leadership, assessment, environment, family, instruction, interaction, teaming and collaboration, and transition. So you should have no problem aligning it to any of these. In your proposal itself, you're going to have to choose 3. So choose 3 specific practices that you want to align, and make sure from those 3 chosen, once you are writing your description for the evidence base, that you're describing how that aligns to the DEC recommended practice too. And so this picture where it says assessment, that's just an example of what that looks like. And then it lists the different practices under that. So assessment has 11 practices total. And we have all the links and everything that you can use in our submission guide too. Okay, next thing is presenter information. And so who's eligible to submit? Really anyone. We want anyone, whether you're new to the field, whether you're experienced and you've been here for years, anyone can submit a proposal because everyone offers a different perspective and we really do value that. You know, we want to incorporate a diverse array of presenters and perspectives. So we encourage anyone to apply. We welcome presenters of different nationalities, varying levels of experience, really representing both those individual experts and your institution or organization that you come from. The most interesting sessions are always those that have different perspectives. People really also love any kind of caregiver perspectives. They love hearing from families. So even if you have a family that might be interested in presenting with you, that's another option that you can explore. So really just consider your co-presenters, who's going to present with you, and how they can help contribute to just the diversity of experience, of opinion, or representation in your session. Now, presenter limits. So this is really important because we want, to encourage diverse perspectives. And so we have limited the presenters to only being able to appear on 2 sessions total. This means that a presenter can appear as a primary presenter for one and an additional presenter for another one. So no more than 2 for each person. If an individual is listed as a presenter and a co-presenter on more than 2, then none of those proposals will be considered until the individual has really withdrawn their name from the appropriate amount. Also, when you're thinking about co-presenters, there is a limit to 4 presenters per session, and that includes the primary. So there's a primary presenter, and then there's 3 additional presenters, so 4 total. So really make sure that you are paying attention to that as well. Okay, so let's say that you are ready to submit your proposal. The primary presenter is the person that is going to submit all of this information. So as a primary presenter, you want to make sure that you're gathering all the information from the presenters before you submit that you will need. So you want their first and last name, you want their company, affiliation, whatever institution that they're from, you want their professional title, you want the department, their complete mailing address. So make sure you get that, like you need their mailing address, their city, state, zip code. So make sure you have all of that information, phone number that they have or that they want to use, their email address, and then their demographics. So they're on the proposal submission, you'll see gender, how they identify, their age range, ethnicity, language, and then years in early childhood. Oh, sorry, I'm just passing along. And then the last question that it'll ask you is if you've ever presented this information at Creating Connections to Shining Stars. So have you ever presented this exact proposal before? Let's see, Melissa asked, how many proposals are submitted on average for each conference? That's a good question. I mean, I think last year we might have had about 50 proposals that, or not last year, 2 years ago. I think we had about 50 proposals that were submitted. No problem. That's a great question. Okay, so other considerations. So one thing to note, Creating Connections to Shining Star, it is going to be offered as a hybrid option. This means that some of our sessions are going to be streamed for virtual participants. However, presenters still have to be in person because we are literally just filming the presenter live during that session. So that's the difference. So we do need to make sure that all presenters are presenting in person. So that way those virtual participants can watch the live stream. It will also be recorded. And so there's going to be a specific time limit that participants can access the recordings. Even when people attend in person, they can also access the recording. So let's say like there's 2 sessions that you really want to go to, and there's one that's hybrid. You could go to the one that's not hybrid and then watch the one that's hybrid later, and access that on your own. So that's another thing that you want to consider. Now, there's going to be a total of 30 presentations that are offered as breakout sessions that we'll accept, and 15 out of 30 are going to be hybrid. So you really want to, it'll ask you, are you okay with presenting hybrid too? And so we'll look at that, and we'll try to honor your preference or choice, but that might not always be possible too. Corey mentioned too, registration option will be in person or virtual. Yes, thank you for clarifying that. So participants that are just attending the conference, they can register to be in person or virtual. Just all of our presenters that are accepted would have to be in person. Okay, sessions. Again, they are designed to be interactive and engaging. So you really want to consider how you will do more hands-on activities and discussions. This can also include like a panel discussion too, breakout rooms, question and answers, or any kind of action planning activities. Okay, this is let me see. For hybrid, there will also be attendees in the room with you. Yes, absolutely, yeah. Or will it just be you presenting? That's a great question. Yes, there will be attendees in the room with you for hybrid still. So it's just going to be a combination of both. All right, vendors. So again, the proposal committee will not be able to accept any kind of proposals that are just promoting any commercial interests. So any vendors that are wishing to present at the conference instead should contact Jackie. And I threw her email up there. Again, you'll get all this information later, but she would be the contact person where they could reserve a table as a vendor. Audio-visual equipment. So LCD projectors, projection screens, and speakers are going to be provided. Presenters are going to be responsible for any other additional equipment that they might use. Like some people will bring the like mouse clicker, so that way you can use that. You also need any kind of laptop adapters, especially for Apple products too. So making sure that you're bringing those adapters. Any kind of handouts that you wanted them to physically have, that would be the presenter's responsibility. All right, and then status. So all primary presenters will be notified by early March again, and then primary presenters. So whoever submitted the proposal, that's the person that's going to get the notification. And then you'll be responsible for making sure that you're notifying all the co-presenters for that decision. And all the confirmation letters would be sent after that, those forms that anyone that was accepted would have to submit back. All right, so let's go to the next thing to look at this. So let's look at the review process. So when we do reviews, they are going to be a double-blind peer review. So your name is not going to be on your proposal, no kind of information. So especially when you're writing your description, you want to make sure that you're not giving away any kind of information that would help someone to understand like who you are, right? Because we really do want to make sure that these are double-blind peer reviewed. So they won't know who you are or give any kind of identifying information about you as they're deciding and going through the rubric to look at your proposal. So the proposal committee is going to evaluate proposals really based on the following things. So when we kind of went over the guidelines and I talked to you about the description, that's really what it's going to be based on. So really making sure that you have well-stated and specific and measurable objectives, right? So making sure that your outcomes are measurable for your objectives. And then detailed statements of productive outcomes for young children and family. You want to make sure that that content is written that it's immediately relevant and important for young children, families, or for practitioners or professionals in the field. So let's say that you are writing a conference proposal about, I don't know, something that has nothing to do with supporting young families. So we're going to write about the latest technology for assistive technology for adults. That might not be something that's immediately relevant for young families or children. It could be something that's immediately relevant for professionals, but you have to make sure that you're showing that. So make sure that that's very clear when you're writing your relevance of how that is applicable to the audience. And then statements including that evidence-based support, really supporting the practice, any of your content or the outcome, and making sure that you're showing how that's aligned with DEC's recommended practices. And then your presentation materials. So we are looking at that, and that's a part of the rubric that will also be looking at how you're going to engage participants. So making sure that you're including a good description that is showcasing that you understand those adult learning methods and what is it that you're going to do to engage the audience during your session. Also, just consider the quality of writing. Make sure that you have a clear writing style, it's very organized, and that the clarity of your ideas and expression are understood by reviewers. Okay, we're going to get ready to get into the questions, but I just wanted to let you know. So these are two resources. So all of the information that I went over today is going to be in that call for proposals submission guide. So it gives you very clear guidelines on what to expect, on what you should do. It also, at the end of it, it will give you an example of what the submission form looks like. So that way you can have a clear idea and make sure that you gather all the information before you're submitting it. You'll also get a schedule preview. So this, just for planning purposes, if you are planning on presenting, just so you know when the breakout sessions are. So the breakout sessions are going to be Wednesday afternoon and Thursday, July 18th. So that's kind of when you can plan to come during those times. Now, presenters do need to register as a participant in order to present. So that is something that we want to make sure is very clear, because I don't want anyone to submit a proposal that's not planning on being a registered participant at Creating Connections to Shining Stars. So if you are planning on submitting a proposal, you also need to just make sure that you are attending as a participant at the conference.
Lisa, could I jump in for
Yes,
just a
Corey.
minute? Because this is another thing I want to be sure we really emphasize. Because this conference frequently fills up, and also because our room blocks tend to fill up quickly, what Lisa is trying to emphasize is you need to be ready at your school system, your agency. You need to be ready to get registered and get your room block reserved, because once that open period that we're kind of giving you all a little bit of a push ahead of time, it's free for all. And our particularly our overnight rooms sell out before we can blink. So we're just really encouraging you to be ready with your supervisors or your fiscal people, so you can get registered. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Corey, for clarifying that. Yes, and so that's why it's really important to just make sure that you're paying attention to those timelines too that we have, and that's why I wanted to make sure that we gave those to you. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions and answers. I would also love to, if you are planning on submitting a proposal, if you want to just drop that into chat, I'd love to know just the interest that's out there to kind of gauge that. But I'm happy to open it up to questions. Feel free, if you want to raise your hand, you can unmute, you can type your question into chat. Oh, good, Adele. I'm glad. Oh, great, Melissa. And if anyone ever has questions as you are, working through it, if you need clarity on anything, feel free to email me. My email is on the screen, but feel free to reach out. Yes, you can submit too. So as a first author, and then so the primary presenter, and then the as an additional presenter for the second one. Great, Marcy. I'm glad you're interested too. Great, Jenny. I'm glad that you're interested in submitting too. So yeah, anyone that's interested in submitting 2 proposals, just make sure that you are only the primary presenter on one, and then you're listed as an additional presenter. So somebody else would have to be a primary presenter on the second one. Feel free to keep dropping in questions or unmute. I am here. But if you don't have any other questions, just so you know, the call for proposals will be going out. Oh, let me drop the survey in too. The call for proposals will be going out at 2 p.m. today. So be on the lookout for that. And I just dropped in the survey for today's session. At the end of the survey, you will receive a certificate for participating today. No, Adele, no. Presenters will get first access to register and access to the room block. Great question, Pamela. So for this slide deck, I think, so what I'm going to do, this is going to be recorded. So you will have access on the Creating Connections to Shining Stars. The recording will be uploaded there, as well as the PowerPoint. And then we'll also include the link for the open call for proposals there, the submission guide, and the schedule. And you'll also get those 2 documents just for you, just for anyone that was registered for today. We'll get access to the submission guide and the schedule. You're going to receive that in the email. That should be in your inbox for the survey too. But the official call with the link will not be open until 2 p.m. today. Thank you all so much. I hope everyone is interested in submitting a proposal, and we hope to see you at Creating Connections to Shining Stars in person.